Ty, we live in a land of wolves, and you're not a wolf. Welcome back to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and I'm here with my good buddy, co-host, Ty Franck. Say hello to all the lovely people, Ty.
How many of our people are actually lovely?
Yeah, that's true. What are we talking about today? I'm excited. I am excited today.
So we seem to be doing our series of movies that we've talked about many times and never actually done a deep dive on. We just keep doing that. So now another one that we've talked about a million times in the past, but never did a deep dive on is Sicario.
You know, I think we're at a place in the podcast now where I can't remember what we did or what we didn't do. I could have sworn we've done Sicario because we must have talked about it ad nauseum. And I'm sure the patrons are like, oh, Jesus Christ, they're talking about Sicario again?
We are talking about Sicario again. But it came up because, you know, the last time we were talking about Way of the Gun, as soon as you start talking about any Benicio del Toro movie, immediately you have to start talking about Sicario because maybe his best performance ever.
Did we do top 5 Benicio last podcast or the Way of the Gun podcast? Yeah. Was Sicario number 1 in performance?
Yeah,
because it should have been.
Yes,
it is by far. I think one of his greatest performances.
I think it's his most chilling performance, which is amazing because the guy has a ton of chilling performances. Benicio del Toro is not a big guy, but he is terrifying in Sicario. Like if that guy walked in the room and told me to give him all of my money and leave, I would just immediately do it. I wouldn't even think twice. Like, here you go, here's the money, I'm out. Because there's something in his eye that says, I will murder you.
What if he said, pull your pants down and turn away from me? What would you do then? Would you still be that terrified?
I would probably.
Or do you have a line to cross?
I would ask, please be gentle. My first time.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, well, at least you're handsome, Benicio. I don't know what year this came out, but whatever year it was my favorite movie of that year. Did we see this while we were doing The Expanse?
No, but we were working on The Expanse when it came out. And the funny story I have about this movie is I watched it while we were doing The Expanse. I think I may have gone and seen it with some of the writers. I may have gone and seen it with Robin and Dan, maybe. Anyway, I don't remember exactly, but we all were big fans of Sicario. Then I went to the Point Break stage show that they were doing in LA for a while. Did you ever go to that?
No, I've heard of it.
So
Dan
Nowak really wanted to go. So Dan and Robin and I and a few other people went to the stage show of Point Break, and Robin brought a guy with her, and I didn't know if he was her date or what. But so there was this guy. Turns out they were just friends, and they decided to hang out that night, and he came with her. But he looked really familiar to me. He was like a tall guy who was balding on top, had red hair, had a little short red beard, and I'm like, man, that looks so familiar. So anyway, we went after the play's over. We're hanging out at the bar. And I'm just chatting with him. He seems like a cool guy. And the question always comes up, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I'm an actor. And I was like, oh, you know what? You looked really familiar to me. I should have guessed you were an actor. I've seen you in stuff, right? And he goes, well, I think the biggest movie I ever did was Sicario. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Who are you in Sicario? He's the leader of the special forces team that takes them into the tunnel.
The Delta Forces guy.
Yeah, the guys that go in the tunnel, in that horrifying tunnel scene, he's the leader of that group. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course that's you. Yeah, the minute he said it, I had a vivid memory of his face in the show. Anyway, so that's the one time my one Sicario story.
Did he have any military background?
I don't know, but he says that he got typecast as military guy very early in his career. So he's done a ton of that kind of part.
Because those guys, those Delta guys, they have a sense of humor and in a way that they speak that is very authentic.
Yeah. Well, there's two different groups. There's the Delta guys that are in.
No, I'm talking about the Delta. I'm talking about there's 3 different groups, but I'm talking about the Delta in particular.
Well, no,
because you got the Texas Rangers, U.S. Marshals, Delta Force.
We can get into this when we get in the movie, but so there's the group of guys at the airport when they're getting ready to go get the people out of Mexico. And he says, Delta guys, raise your hand so everybody knows who to hide behind when the shooting starts. And those guys raise their hand. He's not in that group. He's in the group where they go into the tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. And in general, though, in general, across the board. There was an authentic vibe and feel, to this movie. Yeah. So, do you want to kind of talk about the big ideas first and like why I think this movie is special, and then we kind of go into
let's do it.
Each moment you're saying. So I remember when I saw this movie and feeling like it unfolded in a way that I haven't seen other action movies unfold. And it also is like my favorite type of action movie. The action is very grounded. It's very real. There's great characters. There's a great story. And each action sequence comes from the story and comes from the characters. And I remember when I watched it, which was the most compelling part to me was that, initially Kate, she is set up like the lead. She's set up like this is going to be her story. Yeah. This is going to be her movie. And I don't think I've seen anything quite like this up until this point. But then when she gets to the beginning of the third act, she realizes that this movie's not about her, that this is Alejandro's movie, and this is his story. And what's fascinating is that his character arc happened before the movie. It happened off screen, but through the stories that are told about him, that's the character arc happens to you as you learn about who he is. And so when he meets his old friend before he tortures Guillermo and they have this conversation, you see that there's an echo of like a good man that he used to be, right? This good man, this thing. And also too, typically or traditionally, like what would this movie would have been is Alejandro, you see him, he's a good guy, prosecutor, he's going after the wrong guy, they kill his family, he goes and gets revenge and kills them all, right? Well, this was told completely different than that type of story, which I thought was really interesting. And then when you see him on the plane, the first thing you see is his vulnerability with the dream, the nightmare he has, and then when he wakes up and he's shaking. And that is it. That's all you get. You get a little taste. There's some moments when he says to Kate that she reminds him of his daughter, but that is, you get a brief window to that. Usually it's reverse. It's the end of the story, and you see the vulnerability for the first time or whatever. And so this movie played with the rules in a lot of ways, and it was fresh and compelling and interesting. The
biggest way it plays with the rules for me. You started out by saying this is an action movie. Maybe it's an action movie. Maybe it's a drama. Maybe it's a lot of things, but it's shot. The cinematography is from a horror movie. It's shot like a horror movie. If you watch this movie and the techniques that they're using to set up the scenes and the way it's filmed, everything
and the
score, everything uses a horror movie structure. So there's an action movie kind of happening in the background of this horror movie. There's a drama happening in the background of this horror movie. There's a crime solving thriller mystery thing happening in the background of this horror, but over the top of all of it is a horror movie. And every time they look across the border at Mexico and it's dark over there and they play that low haunting music, it's the horror movie shot. It's the monster lives over there and it's coming across the border. Because of that, it's fascinating. But I have a lot of friends who don't like this movie. And I think the reason they don't like it is because I think a lot of people, when they watch movies, they need movies to plug into very specific boxes, right? Mm-hmm. Like if I go watch a sci-fi movie, I wanted to plug in a very specific box, right? And a horror movie plugs in a really specific box. I think people watched this movie. Some of my friends watched this movie. They didn't know what it was because it's so many different things and has that patina of horror over the top of all of it. I think it was tonally confusing for some people. For people who have seen a lot of movies and are looking for something fresh and interesting, it's amazing. Like you're watching, it's like, I've never seen anything like this before.
That's interesting that you have friends that didn't like it. I would like to hear exactly because you felt like it didn't fit into a box. They didn't know quite what it was. But again, I think that's what we've talked about on the show. I think that's what you and I loved about it because it is the score. When they have that caravan going to the other side of the border and there's bodies hanging from the bridge and you're like, where the fuck are we going? And also there's an element of the supernatural. I mean, it's a grounded movie. It's about the cartel, but it is so evil and so far beyond what we knew before we started watching this movie for the most part, that it has a supernatural component, that the beast is coming across the border and there's really nothing we can do about it. It reminds me a lot of No Country for Old Men, where Tommy Lee Jones represents a way of life, a way of law, a way of honor, a way of understanding, and the world has changed, and he is no longer able or equipped to understand or to face off with the new evil that is coming.
Yeah, Anton Chigurh is a kind of evil that the old cop has no answer for. He doesn't understand what to do about that. And I think it's a good comparison, because these cartels, these massively funded cartels that make their money off of these drugs, have resources and people committed to them that typical law enforcement has no answer for.
We start off with Kate and them, and they raid that house. Yeah. That is a safe house for the cartel.
All right, so we're going to start with the movie now. So we're given our sort of overall impressions. Now we're going to do the movie. And what I like about what you said, and I think this is something we should reinforce, is that at the beginning of the movie, Kate is the classic main character. And so go ahead and describe the scene. So we follow Kate as she's doing this opening scene.
Right. Well, I mean, the one issue. So they've obviously been scouting out this house, right? And I think it's an interesting choice that they chose this house. It's very Americana. It's in a neighborhood, and it kind of plays with your expectations a little bit, because it shows you how, even the bodies in the house that are in the walls, it shows you that this infestation of drugs and money, like how far we've gone. Like the war on drugs has not worked.
It is literally the rot in our walls.
It is the rot in our walls. Yeah. And so when they're running through, when they're basically coming down in the desert and they're walking in formation and they're running in this house, there was a little bit that takes me out, because I'm like, they don't have any desert deer. Like, they're fucking pitch black. It's in the day, and there's like a house full of badass fucking cartel guys, and they're coming in, and I don't know. There's just a little bit. It's like, do they not?
The Army. They're DEA.
I know they're DEA, but wait till nighttime. Shouldn't you have some kind of, like, you're in all black, head to toe black, on top of a hill in the vantage point that they're coming down on the house, and you're walking in formation? Like, you don't think there's not?
Didn't you ever watch the thing on the Branch Davidians, on the David Koresh thing? DA in all black in the middle of Texas in the middle of the day walked right up to his compound, and a bunch of them got shot. I think it is the first example that these guys are acting like this is normal crime. They don't know that these are suicide sicarios. They do
know. Yes, they do.
They know that they're associated with the drugs, but they don't. They
know this is the cartel.
Right.
They know they've been scouting this house for a massive amount of time.
Yes, they know it's the cartel, but it's also in America. There's not that same level of expectation of violence when you're dealing with these drug gangs in America. There just isn't.
But they know how dangerous. They know what weapons are there. They know how dangerous these people are, and that's why they're completely on edge. That's why they fucking ran through the front door of the house, and they got out, because they knew these people aren't fucking around. Like, if this was a normal crime thing, they probably wouldn't run through the front wall of a house, maybe putting potential innocent people in danger. No, they knew who was going to be in that house. They knew that it was dangerous, and they ran that fucking thing right through. I think
this opening scene is the first demonstration that these guys, in spite of all the things they think they know, are not quite prepared for what is actually going to happen there. And I think it's a storytelling moment. I don't think it's because they just couldn't afford to buy different camo. I think it's a storytelling moment.
Well, I don't think it's that they couldn't abort. So you mean to tell me that the DEA, they have no idea how to blend into the background, that they have no training, that they're just out there standing straight up with completely all black, and then the fact that they know that these people have weapons, that they're dangerous. So yes, they don't understand, but that the level of evil and how intense this cartel is. But guess what? There is dangerous people in the United States, and these people have went through those. This is just another level. And so there's just a little bit that put me off about it. I think the DEA would be a little bit more stealthy going in there. They're just very lucky that nobody looked out the window while they were walking up on the house.
I will say I was staying at a friend's apartment in Albuquerque.
And you got raided?
No, but there was supposedly was a shooting, and there was some they were hunting some drug guys, local drug guys, not cartel, local drug guys who they thought had moved to this apartment, and a line of SWAT guys just walked through the courtyard in all black. Just walked out the other side.
I saw a documentary on the border.
Yeah.
A friend of mine did the documentary, and Border Patrol and the DEA, it was about drugs and crossing the border. Border Patrol and DEA had camouflage, had desert type camouflage while they were working in the thing. So anyway, it's neither here nor there. So they end up blasting into this house and they go through. And, Kate goes to clear a room. There's a guy on the other side with a shotgun. She falls down and blows up the wall. She takes him out. Now, immediately, you can see the cost of taking this life. So immediately, for me, I'm like, oh, this is a different type of action movie. This death feels realistic because of the way she reacts to it. She was surprised. She reacted in the moment. She relied on her training, but it had an impact on her right in the moment.
Yeah, and that's part of the realism of the movie. I mean, she's not John McClane. She's not an action star. Mm-hmm. She murders somebody, or not murders, but she kills somebody in self-defense. And in the moment, she just does it out of instinct because she's been trained and all that stuff, and she's good at her job. But afterwards, I mean, there's a reason why we make cops take a couple months off after a shooting. There's a reason for that, because there is this psychological impact of having killed somebody.
Mm-hmm. And they blew a hole in the wall, and surprise, surprise, motherfuckers! Like in all of the walls. And what's funny is, like, when they said, I don't remember the exact numbers, but they were like, "How many bodies we have so far?" It was an obscene amount of bodies, and they're all in the walls. They're in the attic and everything. They hadn't even looked in the crawl space. That's the first moment where I was like, "Is this a horror movie?" Like we said, I mean, the score and everything, but I'm like, this is fucking got some scary shit to it.
Yeah, and it's followed up by that shocking scene that you do not see coming when they pop the lock to get in that little shed. And the sound design here is great because it is so loud and it is so sudden, and it's followed by that quiet and ringing. It really puts you in the moment with her, right? I mean, you're there when it happens. It feels like, just because the violence of the sound of it. And they lose a bunch of guys. You know, you're saying they knew what was going on there. They clearly didn't know about the bomb in the shed. And
well, I mean, it's a booby trap. Like, of course they didn't know. I didn't say they knew that there was a booby trap, but they definitely surveillance for a long time. They didn't know this or that. So cut to, Kate is waiting out in front of a boardroom, and they're having a discussion, and Kate and her partner are sitting there, and they think that they're in trouble. They think that we did everything by the book, right? And she's like, yeah, we got nothing to worry about. Don't worry about it. Now, I think one of the things this movie does so well, I mean, it is artistry how well they do it, is the delivering of exposition. Yeah. And when I went back and I watched it Monday. When I went back and watched it, I'm like, oh, they don't tell you shit. Yep. They show you a lot, and then you can figure out a lot. But you don't know anything until it's time for you to know it.
Well, and I think as a storytelling device, that's really important, because that's the problem she has. We're following her, and she doesn't understand what's happening. People keep telling her to do stuff. She doesn't know why. The James Brolin character is dragging her back and forth across the border. She doesn't understand what's going on. So we're as lost as she is. And as she learns things, we learn those things. It's really well done as a storytelling device.
Yeah, and it's well directed and well acted in the scene, because everybody has a secret. When she walks in, it's clear everybody has a secret, and she is on the outs, like you just said. And then we're on the outs with her. And Brolin, so we meet Matt for the first time, and he reminds me of. Do you remember Real Genius, when Val Kilmer has that conversation with that kid, and he's like explains about this genius that was at school, and
the guy who lives down in the basement.
And he broke under pressure. And so Val Kilmer was like, I used to be that way. And then I was like, it's too dark, it's too fucked up. So I just stopped taking everything seriously. Yep. And so he's always dressing crazy and everything. And I feel like Brolin is a little bit like the Val Kilmer, where it's like his world is so dark and fucked up that he's just like done taking it. Like, he doesn't take himself seriously at all. He wears fucking flip-flops and Hawaiian shirts. Yep. And also, there's a bit of like underestimating him, in that way, and a bit of manipulation.
I think some of it is protective coloration. I think he's deliberately acting like an idiot frat bro so that people don't take him seriously. But underneath it is this fearsome intelligence, and he's a guy with a plan. He's a guy who knows exactly what he wants to get done and how he's going to get it done. But he wants everybody else to always underestimate him.
Yeah. And what's compelling about him is when the moments when you see that other side of him, he is completely on point. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's read the room right the whole time. But you didn't know that because he's eating peanuts and leaving them on the floor and like sleeping everywhere. And he's like, ooh, when the guy, why so serious? He's always fucking around, and doing that thing. So they ask her if she wants to be a part of this thing that they're doing, this task force, and if she really wants to make a difference. So she says she does. They show up to a private jet, and immediately she's like, wait, what?
Hey, right.
When? Go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, it's that moment of I may have gotten into something I didn't understand what I was getting into. Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't explain shit, and I love it. Like they're like, don't worry about it. Yeah, you'll be okay. Da da da. And then she meets Alejandro for the first time, and Benicio, he just has a screen presence that's interesting. Your eyes go to him. There's a mystery behind his eyes. You're trying to figure out, what it is. And this is I think one of the best. Well, obviously we did the top 5. I think this is his best role, and it really played to his strengths.
There's a subtlety to what he's doing in this movie that is, if you spend a lot of time studying what actors do and working with actors, the subtlety of his performance is impressive. That he clearly, he has very few lines in the movie, but there is always stuff going on in his head, and you can see it on his face. But he's also a guy who doesn't give a lot away, so you can always tell there's something in his head going on. You can see little things on his face, but he's also a guy with enormous control. So he's playing like 5 layers of stuff in this character at the same time, all the time. That's really impressive.
Yeah. Really impressive. And then, again, like we talked about earlier, he shows his vulnerability. You see it in the beginning. Yep. And he has this nightmare and this dream, and then you're like, what the fuck is this about? And then he kind of comes out of it, and you never see it again. Yep. You never, because once he gets back control and once he puts that mask on, you never see it again from that point forward. And then, so the way that it unrolls, I love it, because now she's on a private jet. She's trying to ask Alejandro, like, is there anything I should know, whatever. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's like, you're asking me how the watch works, So then they land, and then they go in this huge, like, staging area, and it's, Delta Force, and then Texas. I love the fight. I love that there's Texas Rangers.
Well, of course there are.
Like Texas Rangers. And it's like every kind of, like, badass iteration that you could think of is in this room.
Yep.
Right? And she's like, what the fuck are we doing? Where are we going?
The guys they got to play the Delta guys, those are some scary looking dudes. I don't know if they're actual military guys that they hired as actors or whatever, but they got the right guys. Yeah.
There's no fucking way the Texas Rangers are actors. There's no way. They went to the Stampede and pulled those guys out of there and said, "Here, this is what you're going to do this part.
Yeah, just wear the outfit you've already got on."
Yeah, wear the outfit you already got on. You got free lunch and a free bottle of whiskey. Come do this part, because they were so good in it. Then they hit a form. I love when she's like, "Where is?" Because he's like, "We're gonna go see Guillermo, his brother. Where is exactly?" It's in the San Antonio area ish. So then they get in this formation, which this whole sequence is so badass with the SUVs going across the border, and it's Roger Deakins like firing on all cylinders. And it goes into your horror, what you're talking, like the score. Once they go into the land of Oz, like once they go to the other side of the border, the rules are different. Yep. And they get surrounded by the Mexican SWAT team, and they have the big 50 cal standing up with the armor around it. Yep. And you're like, what is going on? What are they doing? Especially the first time you see it. It's just so like, mysterious.
Well, and the horror movie trope of, so in a horror movie, you're in the woods. You feel like there's things moving through the trees and you keep catching stuff out of the corner of your eye. They're doing that, but they're doing it with buildings and motorcycles. It's like they keep looking over and then a motorcycle goes by and it's like, is that guy keeping an eye on us? Is he the one who's tracking us, right? So you get that, we're lost in the woods and there's monsters moving around out here.
I think it's Jeffrey Donovan. Let me look that up. Is that the guy that's dry? The guy that's when he picks him up and he's like, he goes, "How are you?" He goes, "It burns when I pee."
Yeah, the guy who did Burn Notice. Yeah, he's also he's also the guy from the second season of Fargo. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and you know it's interesting because they never show his face. They always show the side of his face. You never get a clear. Jeffrey Donovan. You never get a clear look on his face, and he's never not joking.
Right.
You know, like as they're driving, and he's like rolling down the window, watch this. You know, keeping track of everything, and then he's like, I'm getting a boner. You know, he's just kind of like always fucking around. So it kind of goes back to that Val Kilmer thing of like these guys live in such an intense world and an intense thing that they kind of got to like make humor out of it.
Yep.
They get to Guillermo and they come back. And this is, I think, probably my favorite sequence of the movie. And we talked a little bit about the beginning is when they're caught in traffic.
When they're on the bridge.
Border. Yeah, they're on the bridge. And the way that it just plays out, the tension, the way that it's shot, the way that it's written, the way that it's acted. And you can see the faces of the guys that they're like, okay, this guy could look. And he fucking throws the stock out, and he's like going in there and he's like, get out of the car. They fucking get out of the car. It's awesome.
Yeah. And again, it's that nothing happens the way it's supposed to happen. Nothing happens the way you expect it to happen. I mean, if you surround a car with a bunch of guys with assault rifles shouting orders, the expectation, for somebody living in a country like America, the expectation is you put your hands up, right? You don't want to get sprayed by those guys. So but these guys, they just keep not doing what you expect. They keep not reacting the way we would expect a person to react. And so because of that, their humanity goes away. They stop being humans because they're not doing any of the things humans would do. And so they become sort of like these, like you were saying, there's this hint of supernatural. There's no supernatural in this, but these guys don't behave the way humans would behave. So they feel like something else. They feel like some other kind of monster, right? And the one that they put the camera on the most is the one who had the tattoos. He's like completely covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
And he's skinny and he's jumpy. He's got his gun down in his lap, and you can just tell that this guy cannot wait to start shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether he gets shot or not, he's going for it.
And so the obvious thing happens, which is a whole bunch of scary guys with assault rifles say, put your gun down. You don't put your gun down. A lot of shooting happens.
And did she kill one of the Mexican SWAT?
She killed one of the Mexican cops because it became clear he was on the other team.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And then, so she took him out because I was a little bit confused about that when I saw that.
Well, and that's part of the suspense of the drive in to pick the guy up is you're surrounded by the Mexican army guys and the Mexican cops. And they've, like you said, they got the Jeeps with the 50 cals on top and that kind of stuff. And there's this question of, are they on our team? Like, are they on our side? And that some of them probably aren't. Is it the one with the 50 cal? Is he going to turn that 50 cal and just start opening up on us? And that builds enormous amount of tension. And then it pays off here on the bridge when, yes, one of the cops absolutely was on the other team. And she winds up having to shoot him.
And then, you get the comment at the end when she's like, what the fuck are we doing? This is going to be all over the news, all over the world. And they're like, it won't even make the San Antonio Times. And then that's the first indication of like, oh, this goes way beyond. This goes way further up the chain than what we understand that this is. This isn't a traditional like cops and robbers situation.
No, and again, the storytelling here is she is a cop in the traditional sense. You investigate, you figure out the crime, you arrest people, you take them to jail, they go on trial. That's what she understands the legal system to be, right? And she keeps trying to apply that understanding to the world she's in now, and it keeps not working. Nobody was trying to arrest those guys in those cars. And they just got out and they were immediately going like, rock and roll with their assault rifles. She doesn't understand that. She doesn't understand that kind of law enforcement. And so because she's lost, we're lost with her.
Yeah. And it's a tough part for her and Reggie because they do repeat the same beat a lot. And there is a lot of like, what the fuck's going on? What are we doing here? And there's that thing or whatever. And when they're doing that over and over, there is a part of you. It's hard to like repeat that same beat as an actor, so you always want to change that beat. And you have Emily Blunt, who's one of the best out there. So she does a wonderful job with it. But there is a little bit of like, shut the fuck up. Like, just you're going to be okay. Just listen. Trust him. Trust Matt. But anyway, so they bring Guillermo in, and what's really interesting how they set this up, he goes and gets the water bottle, right? They walk into the thing. Brolin is there, and they've been feeding him water, right? He's been drinking water, getting his belly all full. Well, Jeffrey Donovan's like, okay. When Benicio walks in, he gets up and goes and then turns the camera off, walks out. And Benicio comes and he puts his like dick and balls in his face. And then he looks at Brolin, and Brolin's like, what are you looking at me for? You know, like he's sitting there drinking, eating a sandwich. Then the camera cuts away. This is what I understand. The camera cuts away and you're staring at the drain, you're staring at the water, and there's some kind of torturing going on, but it's not waterboarding. And so I don't know what is it? What's he doing to him?
I
mean,
I think they're
is he fucking his face?
No, I think they're implying that he's waterboarding him.
But he's not using the water.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the guy's going, and I'm like, is he fucking his face? Like, what is he doing? I mean, is that like what they consider torture? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
When I watched the movie, I assumed that they were waterboarding him.
Because it cuts to the water and you see the drain. Right. So I was like, oh, the water bottle is going to go up and you're going to see the water go in the drain. Right. Maybe they did do that and they cut it out later. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what that is. All right. And I don't think he was fucking his face. That don't make any sense.
Because if somebody hates your guts, do not put your dick in their mouth.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
That's not a good move.
Yep.
That's not a good move. So through Guillermo, they learn about that there's this mysterious tunnel and that this tunnel is like a main trafficking area that they use. Moving on.
Oh, I wasn't sure if you were thinking or if you, keep going.
Yeah. I think this is a point where another, like, what the fuck are we doing here? What is this thing? And I think this is the point where Brolin basically says, we are trying to get to the main guy and we are going to cause so much havoc and disrupt their money making to a point where they're going to call in this main guy's brother, because nobody knows who the fuck this guy is, the main guy. Nobody knows who he is, and we have to have somebody come for him that we can identify what it is, right? And so they go to the bank and they raid this bank and they're starting to put a hurt on his money. They have a certain different people go around and they're making deposits all day. They do $9,000 deposit because at 10,000 you have to. And so what's really significant is you see the band that is wrapped around the money, and you know that's going to be significant, important later. And Emily Blunt's Kate is like, okay, well now we have something to build a case. I'm going fucking in there. We're going to build a case. And Brolin's like, don't go in there. Oh, don't go in there. And then she goes in there and he's like, and then you look at it, it's like, he told her not to go in there.
Well, again, I mean, so Emily Blunt is standing in for America, the larger American public, the America that thinks that there are rules that the world follows, right? And so as the stand-in for that, she keeps trying to apply the rules to this thing. Oh, if we can get them on this, then we have a case, then we can prosecute. She's still in that world because that's how we want the world to work. And here in America, that's how we think the world should work. The problem is those rules do not apply to this new thing. And she doesn't get that yet. She doesn't. And not only does she not get it, but she doesn't want, I mean, this is what Benicio's pointing out to her at the end of the movie, but she doesn't want that to be true. She doesn't want the world to be that way. She doesn't want to live in a world where the only way you can handle crime is this kind of violence and aggression and that kind of stuff. She doesn't want that to be the way you do it.
Right. She's a good and moral person. Right. And these people, it's like Charlie Sheen in Platoon. Like when he shows up, fresh out of college and he shows up, these guys have been already fighting this war. They've already learned the lessons. They've already had the scars or whatever. So he comes in as a newbie and they're not waiting for him to catch up. They're basically like, you'll get it soon enough. Oh, you'll hear it soon enough. And that's what Benicio says. He's like, your American ears aren't ready to hear the truth. But it's also what she knows how to do. She's thrown in this situation where she doesn't know which way's up, which way's down. She morally is opposed to the shootout of killing people without really doing the investigation, or she doesn't really know what's going on. So now she's like, well, I know how to do this. Okay, we have his money, we have the bank accounts, so now we're going to start building a case. This is something I know how to do. I don't know what the fuck you guys are doing, but this is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And then she gets seen on camera. Cut to her and Reggie, her partner. They go to the bar and they're hanging out, and Barenthal just happens to be there. Oh, handsome Barenthal. And they strike up a conversation. It's nice and romantic, and they head home and they're doing a little smoochie, and you know, he might have took his blue pill.
He might have took his blue pill.
He might have took his blue pill. Crotches were rubbing on each other, getting hot and heavy. And he takes all his stuff out of his pocket and he lays it on the table. And there is the money band that she saw from the cartel earlier. Great scene. Great moment.
Yep. And we realized that it's her moment where she discovers the corruption isn't just on the other side of the border. The corruption is on our side of the border too. And just like there are Mexican cops on the cartel payroll, there are American cops on the cartel payroll. And suddenly realizes that her life is in danger, that they've spotted her. They know who she is. Now the wolves are coming after her.
And what do you think? Because when she sees that, she clearly freaks out. He sees it. He connects the dots. Right. And then they start fighting, and he ends up being like choking her to kill her. Right. Do you think that was his intention at first? Because he says, I was just trying to get information, but do you think he was going to kill her?
I don't think so, because it was so hard. I mean, everybody knew they were together. It's so hard to get away with that. I think you're right. There's no chance he could get away with that murder, and he knows that. But in the moment, he's panicking. She's panicking. He's panicking. Everybody's doing stuff they wouldn't normally do. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think he probably was supposed to get close to her so he could keep an eye on her and know what she knows. And when she saw that, he knows that he's going to be blown. So you're right. He was panicking. He was choking her, and fucking Benicio shows up, and that's just a great scene. Like when he's there, because you kind of hate the guy because he's, you know, like weak and he's choking her, and so when Benicio shows up, you're like, God, kill that guy. Yeah. Like, kill that fucking guy. You know,
don't choke Emily Blunt unless she asks you to. Blunt. Other than that, don't do it.
Don't do it. And then basically Emily Blunt Kate learns in that moment that they were using her as bait. So now they've been lying to her. Like they use her this whole movie.
Well, that's the thing. When people complain that the Kate character is unsympathetic because she's always the one who's going, what's going on? Why are we doing this? She was right to be suspicious. She knows something's happening here that they're not telling her. She knows it through the whole movie, and she's trying to get that information through the whole movie. And at the end, she is proven right. They absolutely were using her. They absolutely were manipulating her, that she was just a prop so that they could do the things that they wanted to do. And she kind of suspected that the whole time. She felt that there was something going on, and she kept trying to get that truth out of them, and they kept blowing her off. So people are like, well, she just keeps asking what's going on. I'm like, you know what? She's right. In the end, it turns out she was right the whole time.
She was right the whole time, and they underestimated her. And also, she proved to be a lot tougher than I think they initially thought she was going to be. So you find out that Barenthal was paid by the cartel to get close to her to figure out what she knows. Then they figure out that there's a lot more corrupt law enforcement that are there. They get him to start giving up names. And then they gear up to raid the tunnel that they're trafficking under.
The tunnel sequence, which is the most horror movie sequence in the entire movie.
This is where they go full horror.
Yep.
And I wonder if this is why you and I love this movie so much. I mean, the guy walks in the tunnel with a knife, and they focus on the knife going in the tunnel, and the whole thing is in night vision, which is just so fucking cool.
Yep.
And at this point, they're still in Kate's point of view, so she's always kind of a step away from the action. She's always like, we're with her, and you're hearing the guns, and you're hearing people scream, and you see flashes, muzzle flashes, and going.
And she's getting lost and having tried to figure out where she is and try to figure out how to catch up to them. And it's just, I mean, it is classic horror movie chaos. Yep.
And it's dark and shadowy and you're going down in a tunnel. Like, that's the fucking scariest thing ever. Is like, oh, there's people in there that are going to kill you. They're there for sure. And you're going to go in there, and good luck.
Yeah.
You know, and so Benicio goes and sees the cop that is loading up the heroin. But one thing I want to go back to is so many times in an action movie or a horror movie, the role of the cop they would introduce him there. It would just be kind of a throwaway, like, oh, here's a cop. They put the gun. They use him for what they need in lesser movies, and then they kill him, and then they move on, right? Like a lot of the guards you kill and you move on. But this movie spent time to let you know who that cop was and to connect to him emotionally, to care about him, to see that he has a son, that he has a wife, and to understand why he has to do the things he does. And it also makes it so much more horrific and scary because he doesn't have any control over his life. He has no choice.
Well, that's the other piece of this story that they're telling, which is that we want to stick everybody in simple boxes. They work for drug cartel, therefore they are evil and deserve to die. And they're showing a lot of the people who work for the cartels, maybe even most of the people who work for the cartels, are not career criminals. They're not people they're not evil people. They're not the Sicarios, right? They're not the tattooed guys with the guns. They're just people who live in a situation where there's not enough. They don't have enough reason. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough food. They don't have enough access. The cartel comes along and goes, we will give you money if you do this one little thing for us. And if you don't do the one little thing for us, we'll murder your wife and your kid. And so you're like, well, obviously I'm going to take the money rather than the murder. That's the plateau or plomo thing, right? The silver or lead, right? You either take our money or we shoot you. And so you wind up with people like this cop, who's a very sympathetic character, and we understand why he's doing what he's doing. But he's part of the machine. He's part of the monster of the cartel, even though he's not an evil guy.
And you see how conflicted he is, with the alcohol. He has to drink all day to be able to stomach what it is he's doing, and the shame that he has in front of his kid. And when that gets me when his kid is like, hey, do you want to go play soccer? Like, just wants to be with his dad. It fucking rips my heart out. Now, I happen to love this scene. I know a lot of people hate this scene, but I think, like, in terms of the logic of the movie and what the movie's saying, you got to have it, is when Emily Blunt comes out with the gun. Kate has the gun, and she points it at Benicio. And what I heard is originally there was like a whole monologue in there where Benicio explains his mission and why he's doing what he's doing or whatever. But then they changed it where he just shoots her and she hits the ground. And then he stands over and says, don't ever point a gun at me again.
Which I think is the stronger choice.
It's absolutely the stronger choice because it tells you everything. It shows you everything. But what also elevates this in a lot of ways, and what's interesting is that Kate's character is really the only person that Benicio cares about at this point because she reminds him of her daughter. And when she went through that horrific ordeal and she was in the bathroom and washing her face, he goes and checks on her to see if she's okay. And then he says, you remind me of somebody that was very precious to me. So when he shoots her, he knows he's shooting her in a space that's not going to kill her. That's just kind of going to get her attention and slow her down because he cares about her, but nothing will get in his way to do what he has to do.
And he's also making it clear to her that if I have to kill you to keep going, I won't like it, but I'll do it.
Yeah. He gets in the car. He tracks down the cartel leader's brother. And that whole thing was cool. Like they're on the drones and the aerial shots and the night vision, and they track him down. And when he ends up killing the cop, that hurts me a little bit.
Yeah.
It really cost me a little bit. That kid's going to wake up and not have his father there. And you saw how much he loved it, just being with his dad.
And we know that the cop isn't a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not a bad guy. Yeah. He's, so it's also making the point, people go, we should just go to these South American countries that have these cartels and we should just like send in the troops and just like murder everybody in these cartels. I've heard people actually say that. And it's like, most of the people you kill will not be bad people. They're just going to be guys like that guy, who he works in the cocaine factory because that's the job that exists in the town he lives in. And he's got a family to feed, right? That's the kind of, a lot of the people you're about to kill are going to be those guys. And the movie's making that point with the cop. Like, we're like, yeah, Benicio, go kill all the drug guys. Oh, wait, don't shoot the cop. We like the cop.
Yeah. Yes. And they make it complicated. They make it complicated where you're not like, oh, Benicio, go kill all these guys. It's like, no. We're going to spend a lot of the movie building this character up so you will see that not everybody, the world's complicated and is nuanced, and not everybody is crazy.
Simple answers are almost always wrong. Yeah. Whenever people go hunting for the simple answer to a complex problem, the answer they're going to come up with is almost always wrong. there's a desire to find a straightforward answer. Let's just go shoot the bad guys. That is very satisfying, but it's not. I mean, it's never the right answer. And the movie's making that point. Like, yeah, we got guys shooting drug dealers. Yeah, some of them aren't. Some of them are just people. Some of them are just a cop who plays soccer with his son.
When he gets to the house and the car rolls up and the brothers with the throat slit, and then he comes in and he blasts people. Did it remind you of in Roadhouse when Patrick Swayze raided Brad Wesley's house?
I think it's very clear to me that the entire movie, Sicario, is a ripoff of Roadhouse.
It's a ripoff of Roadhouse because he put the brick on the car and he thought it was this guy coming in.
Absolutely a ripoff of Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Yep.
A fucking ripoff of Roadhouse.
And if there's any actor who is most like Benicio del Toro, I think Patrick Swayze is definitely that actor. I think the two of them are basically the same guy.
There's spirit animals. Yeah. They're connected. Now, a critique of this last sequence that drives me up the wall, and I hear it a lot, and I'm curious if you heard it, is people say, well, come on, this guy's the head of the whatever, and he has this small number of guards, and they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like, this doesn't ring true. Like, it would be a lot harder for him to get to him. And I'm like, the whole movie has been setting up that this guy's power is secrecy.
Yeah, nobody knows who he is.
Nobody knows who he is, and he flies under the radar.
Yep.
And the fact that there's very few guards and very few people there make the most sense.
If you surround yourself with an army of guys with AK-47s, people notice. He doesn't want people to notice.
Didn't you see what happened to Al Pacino in Scarface? When if you live in a castle with just and every threshold or every window, there's a person with a gun there.
Someone will notice.
Somebody will notice that there's a drug cartel. So the fact that it was under the radar, that the house was somewhat normal. It was a beautiful house, but it was somewhat normal. And there were a few guards out there, obviously, but you wouldn't have driven by that house and be like, oh, there's a cartel guy there, right? To me, that is one of the best things about the movie is how they set it up. And it played out that way, and people are like, come on. And it's like, no, you're not referring to real life. You're referring to movies that you saw where it's like, okay, this is the last villain to get to. Yeah, like The Last Dragon when they're at the club and all different factions have to come in. You got to fight everybody, And it's like, no, that's not how it works.
Nice Last Dragon reference.
You got to shoehorn Last Dragon at any chance you can get. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's talk about this last sequence when he rolls up in the house.
Everything has been about this, and we've learned some things about the Benicio del Toro character. That the fact that he was a guy who was attacked, his family was attacked by the cartel, that horrific things were done to his family out of revenge, and that his entire life has become a single mission to get back at the people who did that to his family. And this is the end. This is the moment where we realize, oh, this was never Emily Blunt's story. This was never Kate's story. This was always his story, Alejandro's story. And he has that moment where he sits down with the family at dinner, and it's the leader of the cartel and his wife and his two sons. And the cartel guy thinks he understands the moment. He thinks, oh, okay, this guy's here to kill me. If you're going to do it, just do it where my family won't see. And then Benicio fires 3 times. We don't see what happens. And then later the camera pulls away and we see both those kids and the wife are down on the ground, and we realize what he's done, that he's like, I'm going to do to you what you did to me before I kill you.
And what I think is perfect about that scene visually is you now get to the last dragon in the biggest cave, right? You get to the monster, right? All this violence and shit that you've been seeing where it's almost supernatural, where it's like a beast, where dead people are hanging from bridges. There's bodies and walls. This one guy is responsible for all of this mayhem, and when you roll up and what you're thinking it is, and then it's just a man having dinner with his family, and it's the most normal dinner that you could imagine. He has a little glass of wine. There's nice music, nice jazz playing over the radio. He's talking to his kids about probably school and things like that. And you're like, this is this is the devil. This is like we've gotten, and it's just that much more terrifying. Yep. And you're right. He sits down, and the fear on the guy's eyes, because at this point you learn that he cut his wife's head off and threw his daughter in a vat of acid. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, visually, like right. Your daughter in a vat of acid, you know, so you're ready for this motherfucker to pay the price. And the fear in his eyes it's great. It's fantastic. But when he starts talking to him, like you said, and he says, you know, and he tries to gain a little bit of control over the situation. He's like, gives a demand. You're not going to do this in front of my family. You start to realize there, oh shit, I don't think the family's getting out of this one. Yep. You know, like you start to have this like, oh fuck, he's going to kill. And then you're right. How beautifully it was done. Storytelling. You hear 3 shots and the camera comes back around and he's the only one living. And you see the emotion and that he finally got to him. He finally shot in the heart of darkness. Yep. And then he says, go ahead, eat. And he just fucking rubbing his nose in it. And then he kills him and puts him out of his memory. It was a exquisitely storytelling.
So this was the
scene.
Other rule. So the 2 life rules I learned watching this movie. One, if a Delta Force guy with an assault rifle tells you not to move, don't move. And 2, never put Benicio del Toro's daughter in a drum of acid. Because if you do that, what about, some bad shit's going to happen.
You forgot one.
Which one?
Don't choke Emily Blunt without permission.
No, do not choke Emily Blunt without permission. Don't do that.
So
good life rules. They should be on everybody's list of top life rules.
We should have a public service announcement at the, you know, like at the end of G.I. Joe, where they'd be like, you know,
now you know,
to be a real American here. Yeah, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. And so then the final image is when that oh god, fucking breaks my heart. That poor boy goes to a soccer game without his dad. Yeah. His dad doesn't show up that day. The mother knows. The mother knows what's going on. Yeah. And they're there playing soccer, and it's all these families that you're talking about, these, you know, people that love their kids and that are trying to put food on the table and working, and they're at this soccer game, and there's machine guns and an explosion, and everybody stops, and they're looking towards the machine guns, but then they drift back into the game. Yep. So this is life as usual. This is what they have to live with. They live with the devil.
Yep.
They live with the beast, and that's Sicario.
Well, no, we have to do the final scene with Kate and Alejandro.
Oh, goddamn. What's wrong with me? Yeah. I'm sorry. I got so focused on trying to meet Joseph's timeline. He's such a taskmaster that I forgot about the most important scene that really brings it all together. Sorry, Ty.
It's the scene you started out with. It's the scene where...
How do you fucking partner up with me? I'm such a piece of shit. I'm sorry, goddammit. I drank 3 whiskey sours, 3 fucking whiskey sours. 8. You fucking drunk. I ate whiskey sours. I couldn't stop at 3 or 4. I couldn't stop at 3. I couldn't stop at 3.
No, just the moment where Alejandro's gotten his revenge. Emily Blunt's back in her life. She's gone back to her life, but she's changed. I mean, it's the Heart of Darkness story. It's like once you go through the Heart of Darkness, you come out the other side. You're not the same person who went in, and she's changed now. And he has that moment together, and he tells her something she needs to hear, which is that it's the line you said to me, which is, you know, this is a country of wolves now, and you're not a wolf. Basically saying, this is your chance. Get out. You're not up for this. The kind of person you would have to become to do the kind of job we do now would break you. And he just turns and walks away and leaves her with that. And she has a moment where she goes.
Well, first he puts a gun. He makes her sign that paper, which is signing away her morality.
Yes.
Signing away. And he puts her gun underneath her neck and says, "You're committing suicide."
Yep.
And she breaks. And she signs. Yep. She signs away her soul.
Because that's the reality is we all have morals. This is something my first writing teacher.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, we'll have some sort of ethical system, whether it's moral or not. But that's something my first writing teacher said when he was talking about characters in books. We all want to believe in the peer character. We all want to believe in the hero, the person who never breaks their rules. But he says the reality is, throughout history, the one constant, the thing that is always true, is you take somebody and you put a sword up next to their children's necks and you say, "Do the thing I want you to do." Everybody does it. Because we all like to believe that we have unbreakable moral rules, but when the lives of the people you love the most in the world are on the line, you'll do whatever the person tells you to do. Oh. And And that's the story of the cop. That's the story of the cop in Sicario. You know, did he want to move drugs for drug dealers? Of course he didn't. But he's got a kid and he's got a wife and he's got responsibilities and there are people running his country who say either you take our money or we're going to kill you. Of course he says, okay, I guess I have to take the money then, right? Because he doesn't want his kid to be killed. And Kate is now confronted with that moment where he puts the gun under her chin and says, it'll be a suicide. You'll have killed yourself. And that will be the story of you. And confronted with that reality, of course she breaks. Anybody would break. Nobody says, all right, I want to be remembered forever as the girl who committed suicide in her apartment. Nobody says that.
No. And I'm under no delusions. I mean, I know how morally fragile I am. And this movie, I hear people, and when I read about the movie, people talk about how conflicted they were because they can understand Benicio, but they don't know if they would have done it the way he's done it. Once I found out that they cut his wife's head off and they threw him in the vat of acid, I didn't have any trouble being along the journey with Benicio del Toro. I was in his camp the whole time.
I think a lot of people would not have shot the two kids and the wife. I think that's the line a lot of people would draw. But I also think the kind of person who does what the Benicio del Toro character did to get his revenge doesn't have that line. I think to be the kind of person who can get that level of revenge, you got to be a person that all the lines are gone now. You don't have lines anymore.
It's a poignant moment when Benicio is walking away and she gets her gun, puts it back together and runs to the balcony and she has him in her sights and he stops and he turns around and he kind of opens his chest and it's almost like an invitation of like, are you going to take the step that I took?
Yeah.
Are you going to?
How far are you willing to go?
How far are you willing to go? And she doesn't do it
because he's right. Because she's not a wolf. I mean, she's a guard dog. She's the kind of person that we want in law enforcement. She's somebody who has an ethical system. She has morality. She wants to catch the criminals, but she wants to do it the right way. So we want her. She's a sheepdog, right? We want that kind of person. But he's saying this is not a job for sheepdogs. This is a job for wolves. And you aren't one. Yeah. And he's right because she points her gun at him and she can't do it.
Right. She still lives in the land of civilization. Yep. It's like Rome when the barbarians showed up at the gate, you know? It's like they're like, form up, boys. Like the barbarians like, oh
yeah.
They fucking eating them and fucking stabbing them and raping them and shit. They're like, what the fuck? It's like, no, civilization doesn't exist here anymore.
And that is what we talked about that last time, why it's so scary to face off with a true psychopath. Because while you are trying to figure out the rules of the situation you're in, they have already stabbed you. They've already moved on. Like they've jumped to the end, which is I'm already stabbing you now. And you're like, wait, I was still trying to figure it out. I was still trying to understand what the rules were. Yeah.
Right. Like Paul Newman in the Sundance Kid, where he's like, first, let's go over the rules. And it's like, well, there ain't no rules. And finally goes, oh, well, we got, and then he kicks him in the balls and goes down. It's like, now we've got that squared away. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then hits him over the head, you know? Kind of like that. All right, Joseph, we got top 5 Josh Brolin.
Yes, we do. Let me get it pulled up.
Thrashing.
I mean, Goonies has got to be on the list, right?
Oh, yeah, Goonies has got to be on the list.
Yeah, of course.
Are we doing hottest Josh Brolin or are we doing best performances?
Okay, so are we? Yeah, so is it sexiest Josh Brolin?
I mean, thrashing then, but, you know.
We've already talked about this. I love American Gangster. I think his character in American Gangster is amazing.
I'm on board with you, buddy.
I'm a big fan of that one. Valley of Elah should have been a good movie, but there's one really weak performance in it that kind of throws that movie off for me. I mean,
right?
It should be a great movie. It has a great cast, other than, and I'm not going to name who that person is.
Don't name names.
Don't name names. But there's one really weak performance in that movie.
Put Sicario at number 1.
Yeah, Sicario's got to be number 1. It's amazing.
Oh, No Country for Old Men. I think it's number 2.
Yep, agreed.
Should we do thrashing
I really like True Grit, but Josh Brolin's part is very small.
Yeah, and I understand. Grindhouse, Dune. He was kind of cool in Grindhouse.
His character was a lot of fun.
I'm gonna say Josh Brolin as Thanos.
Yeah,
really elevated those Avengers movies.
Yeah.
Anytime he showed up as Thanos, he really elevated that part. He brought a vulnerability and a pathos to the bad guy that you don't often see in superhero movies.
You know, Ty, when you use the word pathos, that's some exciting.
Yeah,
that's hot.
That's me giving you a verbal purple pill.
It always turns me on when you use those big author words. All right, what did our Patreons? Do they know us? Yep.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
I always do 60%. Although I will say I do love True Grit. I just don't think Josh Brolin's part in True Grit is big enough.
Yeah, I agree. All right, thank you guys for hanging out. We love you. I hope you enjoyed Sicario as much as Ty and I enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Every time you ring that bell, Ty gets a boner.
It's the purple
Ty
pill
gets
of
the
bells.
blue pill. The purple pill. Alrighty.
Say goodbye, Wes.
Oh, say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.